the Malach went and was Mavalvo, their camp, and almost 200,000 of Sancher's men killed themselves. They killed each other, I mean, out of confusion. So they actually found, in the archaeological digs, they found evidence of it. I don't remember what they found, but they probably found, an army. They probably found a lot of skeletons, but they exactly in the place where it's brought down to Novi where it was. But I was looking for the article again. I couldn't find where I found it. Okay, gives you a big chizik. You see the Rebbeinu Shalom's Torah is Emes Lamitas. Okay, we are up to Kuvid Gomar Alf the Mishnah. We're going now to Hilchas Halva. So at the end of this parak, there's so many different subjects that are discussed, right? We discussed kablonis, we discussed paying workers, we discussed mashkins a little bit yesterday, and now we're discussing more halachas about a mashkin. Hamavas chaver, loy yimashkinenu elo bevezin. You can't just go and take a mashkin from him if he didn't pay. Bezin has to take care of that. Rashi adds, afilu b'shuk. It not only is it that you cannot go in to his house, even b'shuk, you're not allowed to take any mashkin from him. Rather, Bezin has to take care of it. Rather, Bezin has to take care of it for you. You're not allowed to go into his house to take his mashkin. Now, of course, this is not referring to you. You're not even allowed to take it from him in the shuk. So the Gemara is going to discuss what this means. Shenemar bechutz tamoid. You will stand outside. So let's just take on one shot right now of the Gemara, and that it's referring to the Shlich Bezin. Even the Shlich Bezin who can demand a mashkin from the loiva, he's not allowed to go in to the house of the loiva and take. Rather, he waits outside, and the loiva will bring out to him the mashkin. What if he had two kelim? And Rashi says, "V'chayvay keneged shneihem umashkino b'shneihem." So there were two different objects that he took, and the chayv is enough that it needed both these objects. So the halach is noitel echad umanich echad. He takes one and he leaves the other, meaning you only take what he doesn't need now. And the Mishnah elaborates, umachzer is a karbalayla, his cushion, you give him back at night because he needs it, and you'll only hold it during the day. And the thing that he needs during the day, he gives back b'yoyim. Now, if I would ask anybody what a mechresha is, they would probably tell me a plow. What does the article say? But that's not going to be the maskana. The Tosfos brings a raya that the things that you have to give back are things that are for personal use of a person. A plow you would not have to give back. So at the end of the Gemara says the machresha that we're talking about is a machresha made out of silver. Nobody has a plow made out of silver. So Tosfos says it means like a scrub brush that he would use when he bathed. The emes, what if the loiva dies? You don't have to give back the mashkin to his children. You get to keep it, to mon from it. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, af la'atzmoi einei machzer ela at shloshim yoyim. A person's chayv is overdue. You hold a mashkin, and in the 30-day period, of you holding the mashkin, you're giving him back what he needs at night by night. You're giving back what he needs by day by day. But once it's 30 days overdue, then you could sell those assets and you can retrieve your money from it. So it was much stricter in those days. The payment terms are on time. If you don't pay on time, they seize your nechosim. And if you don't pay 30 days after you seize nechosim, they sell. It's a very short period of time to retrieve your money. Amar Shmuel. Shmuel said, Shliach Bezdin menatach netuchi in aval mashkuni loy. Rashi says, let's see, the first Rashi in the Gemara, Afhu, Eini Rishai Lekanis L'Beis L'Mashkin. Even the Shliach Bezdin, who's the one who's going to be taking the mashkin, he's not allowed to go into the house of the loiva to take. L'Re'eu b'shuk, if he sees the loiva in the shuk, then the menatach davar she'oiches b'yadim imenu, you're allowed to take, Shliach Bezdin will take something from the loiva that the loiva happens to have with him in the shuk. The Mechaschinach and other Mefarshim explain why we have these restrictions. And the answer is quite simple. Imagine a loiva is sitting with his family and the Shlich Bezdin barges in and humiliates him in front of his entire family. You owe money and therefore we're steezing a mashkin. That's too harsh on the loiva. But if he meets him on the street and he's holding something, that's where he would seize a mashkin. Correct the Gemara, but none. Our Mishnah says, if you lend your friend money, you're not allowed to take a mashka from him. Ela bebezdin, michlal, the bebezdin memashkinin. Wouldn't that be mashma from the Mishnah itself that bezdin could be memashkin? And the word memashkin means to go into the loiva's house and remove and take and seize a mashkin. So just from the first line of the Mishnah, if you're medayik in it, it would indicate that Bezdin could go and take a mashkin from inside the loiva's house. So that's going to be shver on Shmuel. Amalei Shmuel can explain our Mishnah. Ema lo yinatchenu ela bebest. It means lo yinatchenu ela bebest. It doesn't really mean literally memashkin to go into the loiva's house. It means Bezdin can see something, Shliach Bezdin can see something from the loiva, they meet him outside. And Hakanami Mistavra. Even without the kasha on Shmuel, it would anyway make sense to understand the Mishnah that way. The Katani Seifa, the Seifa of the Mishnah says, which we pointed out was a little bit difficult to understand, Lo yikanis leveisai litel mashkoin. Not allowed to go into the house of the loiva to extract the mashkoin. Money. Who is the Mishnah referring to when the Mishnah says this halacha? Ilema b'alchoiv. If it's referring to the b'alchoiv, mereisha shmamina. Never mind that he can't go into someone's house. He can't take a mashkin anywhere. It says a malvas chaveri lo yimishkanenu. So the Mishnah wouldn't have to tell me that the malva can't go into the house. He can't even take a mashkin anywhere. Everything has to be done through the bezdin. El lav shlich bezdin. It must be referring to the shlich bezdin. So it's the shlich bezdin that shouldn't go into his house. Vice the chois, my Allah is right that the shlich bezdin may not go into the house of the loiva. He can only be menatech. He can only take something from the loiva if he meets the loiva in the street. Zok the Gemara. Let me show how area. Okay, Shmuel, you might have a deflection that you don't have a raya for the Mishnah against you, but you can't turn it around on us and bring a raya for the Mishnah like you. Why? And here we have a critical line over here. We have a base here where the Bach says that the Gemara has a chesur mechsera, and the chesur mechsera of the Gemara is that it should take chesur mechsera. Chesur mechsera v'hachi katani. We're going to have to change a little bit the lashon of the Mishnah. That's the Bach's gersa. The Gemara's gersa is hachi kamar. This is what it means. Hamalvas chaveroi lo yimashkinenu ela bebezdin. You're not allowed to take a mashkin of him. Only bezdin could. Michlal, it's mashma. The bebezdin mimashkinin. In bezdin, they can actually go into his home. They can go into the loiv someone take. That would be pshat in the Mishnah. Ubachoiv and abachoiv afilu nituche namiloi. Abachoiv isn't even allowed to take from the loiva in the shuk. Shema yikanes lebeisai litamashkoin. Because if we let him take in the shuk, then he might also go into the person's house and take it. So let's look at the Mishnah inside and see how it reads. Amalva eschaveri lo yimashkinenu ela bevezin. You're not allowed to take a mashkin only in bezin. Bezin's allowed to take a mashkin. However, the B'chayv himself lo yikanes. I'm sorry. The B'chayv himself, here's the Chasur Mechsur. The B'chayv himself is not even allowed to take in the Shuk. Why? Shema yikanes leveisa little mashkoinoi, because that might lead to the Malva actually going into the house. So Tosfos has a kasha. When you have a kasha on the Mishnah, a very shver kasha on the Mishnah, and we have no way out, the Gemara introduces Chasur Mechsur. Here, Shmuel is using it, or the Gemara is using it, just to deflect that it shouldn't be a raya to Shmuel, who said there you're authorized to use such a radical method of Chasur Mechsur. It's the very last Tosfos on the Amud, the one-liner, the Chasur Mechsur v'achi ketani. As you can see, Tosfos is garish v'Chasur Mechsur just like the Bach is, but not necessarily do you have to be garish that way. So, Frek Tosfos Tema, the Kamer Chasur Mechsur kedei litchos. When you're stuck, you say Chasur Mechsur. But just to be doicha that it shouldn't be a right to Shmuel, you say Chasur Mechsur. And for Tosfos Yeshlomer dein lochish kivin she'enim magia kol kach. V'roiv svarim gasi hachika amar. So most of the svarim are not garish like the Bach. They're just garish hachika amar. We're not really changing the wording of the Mishnah. We're just partaging it in a little bit more creative a fashion. Exactly machlokes if this is a Chasur Mechsura or if it's just massaging the pshat. Okay, so the subject matter is very simple. A bezdin is authorized to take a mashkin from a loiva. May a bezdin go into the house of the loiva and take, or do we pass like Shmuel that the bezdin may not go into the house and take? The bezdin could only take from the loiva if they meet him in the shul. It says in the pasuk, Lo yachbal rechayim v'rochav. There's another restriction when it comes to taking mashkonis. You're not allowed to take rechayim v'rochav, which would mean tools of the trade, things that the loiva would be able to earn a living with. Let's look at the whole pasuk inside. Lo yachbal rechayim v'rochav ki nefesh u'chayv. Your mom is taking away the nefesh of the loiva. So lo yachbal rechayim v'rochav. It's mashma that's the only restriction related to taking a mashkin. Ha dvar machim chayvel. Other things you are allowed to take, meaning you're allowed to even take it from the house of the loiva. So you, Shmuel, say even a shlich bezdin is restricted; he can't go to the house. It's not much like that because chayvel is a loshon of mitoich habayis, and the Torah says the only restriction of what you're allowed to go into the house and take is rechayim v'rochav. But other things, you'd be allowed to go into the house as a shliach bezdin. So it's shver on Shmuel. Another kash on Shmuel. It says, Leisachvoil, beged almana. The beged of an almana, you're not allowed to go into the house of the loiva to take. Hashal acherib, mashma that anyone else's beged, tachboil. The shliach bezdin is permitted to go into the house of the loiva and take. So, man, who are we talking about? If we're referring to the Bachayv is not allowed to take the Rechaim V'Rochav, the Bachayv is not allowed to take the Beged Almana. We already know that the Malva is completely outlawed from taking any type of mashkin. Elolav, Shlich Bezdin, the pasuk must be speaking about the Shlich Bezdin, and the Shlich Bezdin is only prohibited from taking a Rechaim, a Rochav, Beged Almana, but everything else he's allowed to take, and he's allowed to go into the house. So Shver and Shmuel who says that the Shlich Bezdin may not go into the house. So Gemara, Tigam or Papa, Bered Rab Nachman, Kamed Rab Yosef, V'Yomer Lei, V'Amri Law, Rab Papa, Bered Rab Yosef, Kamed Rab Yosef, La'olim B'Bachayv. The pasuk is referring to the Bachayv himself. Why would you prohibit him from taking a Beged Almana, from taking Rechayim V'Rochav? He can't take anything. Zok Gemara V'Laver Allah V'Shnei Lav. Stop taking a mashkin, any mashkin, that will make him violate one lav. But if he takes these types of mashkonis, it's even worse, and therefore he will be over on two lav. But you don't have a raya that is the shliach bezdin who's allowed to do it, who's not allowed to take these things, but shliach bezdin is allowed to take other things. So therefore Shmuel is once again for emperor. Tashma. Let's try again. Mimashma shenemar. It says in the pasuk, b'chutz tamud. So let's have a look at the pasuk inside. It says, "B'chutz tamud, you remain outside. V'yoish asherata noishaboy, and the person that owes you the money, Yosy elecha is a avei. We're going to be playing with this v'ya'ish. Is it the chutz tamid v'ya'ish? Even the shlich beis stays outside, and the asher ata noisha boy Yosy elecha, the loiver brings it out, or is it the chutz tamid, and then v'ya'ish asher ata noisha boy, and the loiver brings it out? No, he doesn't. Well, he does really need a warrant because Bezdin does it. So Bezdin has to authorize it. A warrant usually would be authorized by Bezdin. Okay, so let's see what the Gemara asks over here. It says b'chutz tamid. It says b'chutz tamid. So any idea she'ish asher atanoisha boy yoitzi. If you're standing outside, well, then who else is getting you the mashkin? Obviously, the ish asher atanoisha boy. Obviously, the ish is the loiva. Elamata meloimer v'ya'ish. They tell you l'rabba shlich bezdin. So you read it the chutz tamid. Not only do you stand outside, but v'ya'ish. Even the shlich bezdin stands outside. And asher atanoisha boy, the loiva himself, he is going to bring out the mashkin. My love, shlich bezdin kaloiva. Let's say that the shlich bezdin is just like the loiva. What does that mean? That he could go into the house. This is how you would read it. So maybe that's how you read it. And the shliach bezdin and asher atanoisha and the loiva together can go into the house and remove the stuff. B'chutz tamid is the malva. The malva is going to be b'chutz tamid. V'ya'ish the shliach bezdin and asher atanoisha and the loiva will go bring it out. So Shver and Shmuel, because Shmuel said beferish the shliach bezdin may not enter the home of the loiva. And with the Gemara loy, the on top of base, loy shliach bezdin is kamalva. Zok Rashi v'hachi. This is how we would read a pasuk. B'chutz tamid ata v'ya'ish so shliach bezdin. Both of you are going to be outside. And the asher atanoisha boy on his own, the loiva on his own, yoytze lecha. So we see again, this supports Shmuel, or could support Shmuel. It's not a raya against Shmuel that the shliach bezdin may not enter the premises. Toshma im chavoil tachvoil sal masrayech. So let's look at the pasuk, the whole pasuk. If I can find it over here. Where's my? Oh, here it is. Im chavoil tachvoil sal masrayech ad boya shemesh teshivenu lo. So here we're talking about a beket shalayim. When it becomes nighttime, so we're talking about beket shalayla. Becomes nighttime, you have to give it back to him so he can have his PJs. Zok the Gemara, v'shliach bezdin hakasav v'dav. We're referring to the shliach bezdin. So even if a shliach bezdin takes it, it has to go back at night. Atayim b'shliach bezdin. Is that what the pasuk is talking about? Atayim b'shliach bezdin hakasav v'dav, or oyne el b'bachayv. Maybe it's referring to the bachayv himself. So Gemara Kishu Omer Loisavai al Beisai Lavai Tavoitai. The pasuk says that the Malv himself has no right to seize any mashkin at all. Hare Bachayv Omer. We already know Abal Chayv is already prohibited. As Rashi says, Ein Rishai. Hamani Mekayim Im Chavel Tachvel. Who's the one who's doing that? Who's going in to the Eloiva's house and taking the Sal Masrayecha? Must be referring. So this is a checkmate. We have Meforsha Brisa that indicates that a shliach bezdin can go into the home of the loiva and take a mashk, which is a direct contradiction to Shmuel. Shmuel would have to admit that his psak halacha is only consistent with one Tana. He's passing with one Tana, but yes, he will concede that there are Tanoim who argue and do allow the shliach bezdin to enter the home of the loiva. The Tanya we learned, shliach bezdin shabala mishkan. The shliach bezdin who came to extract a mashkin from the loiv. Lo yikadosh leveisa lemashkina. He's not allowed to go into the house. Rather, elo oimid b'chutz. He stays outside. V'haloi, meaning the loiva, moitzi loy mashkin will bring a mashkin for him. Shenemar b'chutz tamoid v'yoish. The Tanya idach. We have another brisa that says b'chayv shabala mashkinoi. A b'chayv who is coming to take a mashkin. Lo yikadosh leveisa lemashkina. He's not allowed to go into his house. Elo oimid b'chutz. He stands outside. The Allah nichnas umoitzi loy mishkoinoi, and the loiva goes and brings the mashkin to the malva. Shenemar b'chutz tamud ushliach bezin shbal mashkinoi, and the shliach bezin that goes hareza nichnas leveisoi umimashkinoi. So here it clearly says this town holds clearly not like Shmuel. So you're also not allowed to take as a mashkin something that the loiver requires to prepare food. Okay, this is already out of our machlokes, so that'll be a new thing, even though it's part of the same brisa. So let's look at these two brises and see which one holds like Shmuel, which one doesn't. The first brisa says, "The tiny shlich bezin shabal lemashkinoi lo yikanas leveisel lemashkinoi lo emid bechutz lo moitzi lo mashkin." That's very clearly Shmuel's shita, right? Shmuel's part of this Tana was even a shlich bezin can't go in. She never bechutz tamid v'ish. But Tanya Yidich, this brisa is the brisa that argues on Shmuel, which says a balchoiv can't go into the house, but a shlich bezin can go into the house. He's just restricted in what he can take. He cannot take things that are used for oichal nefesh. And Rashi says, where do you see anywhere in the Torah that you cannot take anything to prepare food with? So Rashi says, this rabu michi nefesh uchoyvel. So when it says l'sachvo rachayim v'rochav ki nefesh uchoyvel, we learned that anything that's made to prepare food, the shliach bezin or whoever takes the mashkin may not take. Okay. So v'loyim mashkenin dvarim shoysim v'leichal nefesh v'noisen mita umita. He leaves two beds for the use of the loiva. He could take anything else, but he has to leave two beds for the use of the loiva. Matzah, and matzah is like a cover or I think matzah is a cover. Is it a cover? Is it a mattress? What is it? Bed. It's a bed. It's a spread. It's like a bedspread. Okay. La'ashir. If it's an ashir, that's the loiva. Matzah is a more luxurious type of bedspread. So a noisher needs it, so you leave that for him. And mita umafitz la'ani. If he's a poor person, you don't have to leave a matzah for him. You can leave mavitz is more like a reed mat, which is less luxurious, less comfortable than an oni would use. But loy avaloy ishta. You have to leave over these benefits only enough to service the needs of the loiva himself. But you don't have to leave over anything for the family of the loiva or the wife of the family or the wife of the loiva. And why not? Zokt Rashi. Loi hu tzarich litin mita. Avaloi leishtoi levana. Why? Tachayehu ksiv. The Torah says you have to be mechaya the loiva. The malva, by lending the loiva money, didn't just accept upon himself responsibility to support the whole family of the loiva. He only has to leave enough for the loiva himself. Okay. Now, the same way Rashi says, we don't take everything away from him so that he can't function. You leave him the bare minimum that he requires to continue to function. Where lashon v'herech oisoi lishna achrina shemisardin lashon shrid. So it either means you're mesader for him, or it means am shridich. It means you leave over something like a refugee who's a survivor. So zok to Gemara kishem shemisardin levachoiv kach mesadin be'erech. The halach is if someone makes a nether, he says erech yalai, and he doesn't have the money to pay the prescribed rate that the Torah says, they assess the person who made this erechin, and they see what he can afford. Let's go back to the Friedrich Rashi. What if the person cannot afford the prescribed amount that the Torah is mechayiv to pay? We learned let him live from the erechin, meaning don't allow the payment of the erechin to totally kill this person, to totally impoverish him. Gizbar abala mashkanoi kishein yodei maseges. The gizbar who's representing hektish, who's coming to seize property to enforce the nether, the chiva of the nether that's on this person. We assess him based on what he will be able to afford. You put this neider in front of the coin, and the coin assesses him. So you don't take everything away, you leave him enough that he can function. But anything that he doesn't absolutely need to function, the hektish, the gizbar of hektish takes away from him. The Yosy the hektish, and that'll be enough. So even though Meikar did his nether was machayev him $500, if they assess him that he's only worth 300, they could only pay 300, then he could pay 300 and he's yoytze. Meaning, vafilu hesher la'achar shamdu v'not l'mashav yodei. What if they seized $300 worth of property? Because at that point in time, they assessed that that's what he can afford. Now he's putter. If he becomes rich later, he doesn't have to pay up later. In other words, let's say you get a break from the tuition committee and then you make a rich. Next year, we'll talk about next year. But here, a putter. I'm not sure if the tuition committee works like Erichin, but by Erichin, that's how it works. Once they seize what they assessed he's capable of paying, even if he became rich later, it doesn't matter. He was already mikayim his nether. That is the anchor. Erichin is what we learn everything else from. You find this concept of assessing somebody according to his ability from Erichin. Once we see that concept, by Erichin, will apply it to a Bachayv as well. The Gomar Micha. The Machu, if someone's poor, we make a special allowance for him. So let's see what the Gemara says over here. Here the Gemara says Pum Fakert. It says Kashem Shemashad Bachayv, just like we have this special arrangement for Bachayv, Kach Mesajin Berchen. It's the opposite. We just said that the source of this concept, where you give someone a break based on what he can afford, Ikar Sider Be'erchingsip. That's the Mikar to everything. Elaima, the way it should be expressed is Kederch Shemasajin Be'erchin. Just like you find this concept, that by Erchin, you make a special arrangement in order to allow the Noider to survive, Kach Mesajin B'chayv, we apply the same principle to a B'chayv. Omar. So let's now drill down. We brought this brisa just to show that the halacha of Shmuel, that even the shlich bezin cannot go into the house of the loiva, is telling them machlokes. There are tanaim who argue and hold that the shlich bezin could go in to a loiva's house, but the brisa also started talking about some other arrangements, like what we leave over for the loiva for kedei chayav. So the Gemara drills down now and gets some more information about that. Amar. Noisen mita umita umatzala usher, mita umita umafitz la'ani. Laman, who is it for? There's two beds. What do you need two beds for? Normally a person needs one bed. What is the second bed for? If it's the second bed is for his wife and children, ulavnoisav and daughters, I mean that second bed is going to get pretty crowded. Ha'amrit loy avoloy l'ishtei levana ulavnoisav. Didn't the Brisa say beferish that you only need to be concerned with the loiva's needs and not his family? So why the two beds? Both beds are for him. Why do you need two beds? So Yeshiva Baruch wouldn't have such a kasha, because we put so many miles on our bed, we don't want to burn out our mattress, so we need two beds to spread the mileage out. But that's not what the Gemara says. Why do you need two beds? In those days, they would eat on like day beds, one on which he would eat his meals, the chadid the zogala, and the other one that he's going to sleep on. Why can't you just sleep on the same bed that you ate on? So we're learning a very important health matter. The Gemara is going to teach us a very important health matter. Shmuel, because of what Shmuel said. Amar Shmuel, kol mili yodana asusayu. Any ailment, I know what the refuah for it is. Levar mahanitlas. Except for the following three conditions, I don't have a solution. One is manda ochol ahina merida aliba rekal. If someone eats bitter dates on an empty stomach, so I guess that causes severe problems. I never ate bitter dates on an empty stomach, but supposedly it could cause some big problems. And Shmuel says, I can't help you if you do that. The second problem that Shmuel can't help you with, someone who ties to his loins, he wears on his waist wet pishtan. I'm not sure what condition that creates. Rashi says chevel lach, a moist rope shall pishtan the flax al mosnov on his waist. So I'm not sure why that causes problems, but that could cause a problem as well. And this is what's relevant to our sugya. The ochel nama, if someone eats, we understand this. You imagine you finish eating your cholent and you can barely move, and you're tired and you're drowsy. It doesn't walk at least 4 amas before he sleeps. You can't allow yourself just to fall asleep after the cholent like a big potato. you have to walk after each meal. Zokt Rashi, before he goes to sleep. So therefore you give him 2 beds. Why? The sleeping bed is placed 4 amas away from the eating bed. So in order for him to go to sleep, he's going to have to get up from the eating bed and walk 4 amas to get to the sleeping bed. So in order to avoid the ailment that Shmuel doesn't have a solution for, he should have a second bed that he has to walk to. Because if you just tell him to get up and walk around the bed 3 times, he's not going to. But I don't know why I can't just fall asleep on the but I guess that he won't do. It'll remind him that he's got to go for a walk. So you knock the chulm dapan gain for spazier. It's push it for your health. Zog to Gemara. What's that? 4 amas, yeah. Yeah, I wonder if our doctors would agree with just 4 amas. They agree to the concept, but my doctor would tell me after each meal, walk to Buffalo and back. Zog to Gemara Vater. Tani Tana kameder of Nach. Kederach shemesadrin be'erechin kach mesadrin be'bachlev. Right. So this is the other concept that we had that we learned from Erechin, that we assess somebody based on what he can afford, and then based on that is what we make him pay. Amalei.
Change that.
No, because first we said Kedem Shavad B'Bachoiv Kach Masad B'Erechin, and we switched it to say Kedem Shavad B'Erechin Kach Masad B'Bachoiv because Erechin was the source. Now, I don't know if we're going to cover this in the Gemara, but Erechin, once you're assessed at a lower amount, so that's what you pay, and you don't pay anything else. I don't know if that applies to a loiva, right? Because by the loiva, we're not talking about how much he's paying me. We're just talking about what we take as far as a mask, how much we'll take. But I can't imagine it means that the choiv is absolved. By Erechin, you could say that, but I don't think you say that by choiv. Amalei. So we asked the following question: how could you tell me that we go so out of our way to help the loiv and we don't take what he needs? We sell. Rashi says, we learned the Mishnah that after 30 days, you sell everything. Even if he's going to need it at night, right? For the 30 days, you give him back his pajamas at night, and you give him back his clothing during the day. After 30 days, you sell it all. So if you're going to sell it all, you obviously don't care about what his needs are. You're gonna make sure to leave him what he needs. You're going to sell it all anyway. So if you hold it, you sell it all at the end of 30 days, no matter how it'll impact the loiva. Why would you tell me that during those 30 days we don't take more than he needs? Zok Gemara. Whoever said where did you get this from? That after 30 days you could sell everything. I'm sorry? No, the Mishnah or Shimon Gamliel says after 30 days you could sell everything. If he pays back within 30 days, then after the 30 too late.
He still owes him money.
No, not if I don't. I sold off his stuff. I got my money back. He paid it right. The mashkin was the value of the mashkin. He paid it back. It's fine. Gemara. What do you mean? The Mishnah says, so who's talking about selling anything? It's Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. It's Rab Shimon ben Gamliel in our Mishnah who said the 30-day thing. Right? If you look back to our Mishnah, it's not the stam of the Mishnah. It's Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. So that's just the shita of Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. So Zok the Gemara, what we're talking about, when I ask a kasha, Hashto you sell, my kasha is according to Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. According to Rab Shimon ben Gamliel, we have that kasha. So Zok the Gemara, what now Machzor is a kar b'ladav is a mechayish b'yoyim, Tana Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. Tana Kamei. He was saying it according to Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. I'm sorry?
sell it or not. No.
You mean after the 30 days? Well, what else would the Malva do if not sell it?
He decides, you know what, I'll just wait, just hold on to the house.
Could he do that? Yeah, I'm sure the Malva could concede. Yeah. Assuming so. So Zokt Gemara, Tanak Rab Shimon, the Rab Nachman, Lachmas Nisim. Because who brought this? Tani Tana Kamei Rab Nachman. So this Tana who presented this thing to Rab Nachman about the Misadrin, he was talking according to Rab Shimon ben Gamliel. So Tanak Rab Shimon Gamliel, Tanak Kamei. And this is what he meant. This is what his kash is. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel, Zavunim Misavninale. According to Rab Shimon ben Gamliel, at the end of 30 days, you sell it. So Sidurai, Misavninale, you're going to suggest that you don't take more than you need to because you're going to put them out. We're selling everything anyway. It's non-bilearn. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel Eimer, Afla Atzmoy Einei Machzer. Yes, his own personal needs, as we learned. You give him back his bed, you give him back those personal needs, but that's only Ela At Shloshim Yoy. Mikan Veilach Moichem Bebez. So the kasha still remains. How could you tell me that you're Mesader for him? How could you justify selling it in Gansen? And now he's completely out all of his necessities, but for those 30 days you're Mesader. That's something that doesn't stem. If you're going to sell it, you shouldn't have to be so worried during those 30 days. Frankly, who said? Who said that's what Reb Shimon ben Gamliel means? Who said that Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says you could sell it, means you could sell everything? Maybe Reb Shimon ben Gamliel means even when you're selling it, you're still salvaging the bare minimum for the loiva to keep. Umimai, the Chikamer Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, the Vune, Lagamri Kamer, who said that's what he means? Dil Mahachi Kamer. Up until 30 days, whatever it is that you've seized from him as a mashkin, you must give back to him. So his pajamas and his bedtime stuff you got to give to him every night, and his daytime stuff you got to give back to him every day. Let's say he had a very expensive quilt. So for the first 30 days, every night he gets his quilt back. After 30 days, he doesn't need a quilt. He can use a cheap blanket. He can use the blankets that they give out in the airplanes. So maybe when Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says after 30 days you sell it, you get $1,000 for the quilt, you buy it for $50, a bare blanket, so he still has his bare needs. Maybe that's what Reb Shimon ben Gamliel needs. So don't ask me, Akasha, why wouldn't Reb Shimon ben Gamliel allow Siddur if he sells? No, because even his selling is metered. He doesn't allow a full sale. Because even in his selling, he's making a Siddur, he is retaining for the loiv of the bare minimum. Zok to Gemara, it cannot be. Because Yisol Kedaitach, Islay, Li Rab Shimon ben Gamliel, High Svara. If you're going to hold that Rab Shimon ben Gamliel holds that Svara, that you don't totally liquidate, you only liquidate up until what the loiva needs, Lekamidi, the Lechazile. There is no such thing. You cannot tell me about anybody. Nah, he doesn't need such a fancy quilt. It's good enough for a smaller quilt. You can't say that. Why? The Amar Abaye, Rab Shimon ben Gamliel, Rab Shimon, Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Kiva, these four titans of Torah, these four Tanoim, Kulas Vir Lahu, Kol Yisrael b'nei Malachabei. Every member of Klal Yisrael is considered like royalty. For royalty, the fanciest of the fanciest is their bare minimum. So you can't tell me, sell the fancy quilt, let him use a small quilt. He's a Ben Melech. A Ben Melech needs the fancy quilt. I'm sorry? That's right. Rabbi b'nei Malach, exactly. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel, where do you see Rab Shimon ben Gamliel subscribes to this concept? It's none. We're discussing what is muksa on Shabbos. Things that you won't be able to eat on Shabbos are muksa. So these are things you cannot eat raw. As Rashi says, metaltlin b'Shabbos. You're not allowed to carry loif and chardal on Shabbos because you cannot eat them. They're muksa. Rashi says she'enim ru'uyim hayoim loyl zeh levashel v'loy zalitchay. The loif you cannot eat. I don't know what loif is. Something of a vegetable, but you can't eat it raw. You can't eat it raw, and the chayil you can't eat if it's not ground. Loif min kidneys, or Rashi says, loif is a type of bean. You can't eat it kishulchay when it's raw. You can't even serve it to birds when it's raw. So there's nothing you could do with it. Therefore, it remains muksa on Shabbos. But Reb Shimon Gamliel mater beloif, you know why? If they shumachal orphan, a regular bird can't eat it, but fancy birds of prey can eat it. What does that have to do with me? Because the Yidden B'nei Malachim, the royalty, they own special birds of prey. They play with these birds, right? They use them for amusement. they're rich princes. They have tigers and they own these wild exotic animals. So rich people, b'nei malachim, have their own Arvin. So for his own team of Arvin, he needs these things. So therefore, every Yid is not going to be muksa, loif, and chaydel, because you need those things to feed exotic pets. Why is a regular Yid have exotic pets, but everyone's a ben melech? As Rashi says, v'yisrael b'nei malachim. They're allowed to keep these birds of prey for their beauty and just to play with them. If I'm not mistaken, I once saw a picture in a newspaper of an Arab prince who rented out an entire passenger jet, and he sat there, and every seat on the plane had a bird of prey, some
Falcon.
fancy bird that he had.
They were falcons.
Sorry?
They were falcons.
They were falcons, but it's true, that story. I didn't make it up.
It's true. They were flying their falcons.
I don't understand. If the falcons could fly, why did they have to put them on a plane? But kasha for Maisa. Okay. So Zok to Gemara.
Wait until you learn about aircraft carriers.
I hear what you're saying. Okay. Okay, Zok to Gemara weiter. I'm sure we'll find the Gemara about that as well. Rab Shimon, where do you see that Rab Shimon considers every Yid a ben melech? The Tanan, b'nei malachim, sachin shemen vered agabe makaseya b'shabbos. The halacha is any medicine that healthy people use, you're allowed to take on Shabbos. So if there's something that a healthy person would use, and you need it for medicine, you're allowed to do it on Shabbos as well. It's not going to be a problem, because the whole gzeir was something that's dafka l'refuah, because it's a gzeir mishum schika samimonim. We're afraid you're going to make medicine on Shabbos, but that's only if it's dafka l'refuah. If it's something that's used even for regular healthy people, that type of medicine is allowed to be used on Shabbos. So therefore, they said, the Tanakhama said, kings, b'nei malachim, princes, who all week long, even if they're not sick, they like smearing themselves with rose petal oil, they're allowed to use it even for a makkah on Shabbos. Why? The royalty use these ointments even when they're not sick. But Rav Shimon Aimer, what do you mean b'nei malachim? Kol Yisrael b'nei malachim hein. Every Yid could do that. You know why? Because we're all b'nei malachim. So we're all considered people who are royal to use this, even though most people can't afford it, but we're all considered b'nei malachim. And Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Kiva, the Tanya, Haresha, you know, shim by elef zuz. If you owe somebody 1,000 zuz, v'lovish itzla bas meyamana, and you're wearing a beged that's worth meyamana, which is far more than 1,000 zuz. Mafshit noisha mimenu. The malva can take the expensive beged away from this loiva, and they can give him a plain simple coat. They take away his min coat, and they can put him on a regular shane coat, and that'll be enough for him. V'tana mishum Rabbi Shmuel, v'tana mishum Rabbi Kiva, absolutely not. Kol Yisrael ruin loisha itztala. If this guy has his big beautiful coat, the malva may not take it away from him. That's considered his bare minimum. So therefore, we're talking according to Reb Shimon Gamliel. You cannot say Pshat and Reb Shimon Gamliel when he says you could sell. It means you only sell based on what he needs, and you don't sell, and you retain for him the bare minimum, because according to Reb Shimon Gamliel, whatever he has is the bare minimum. So therefore, we're back with the kasha. Reb Shimon Gamliel says you could sell it completely. You're going to be mesader. Zok the Gemara, ulamai de salak adayte meikara. The yoyev leimad the chazal. So we slugged up this argument in Reb Shimon Gamliel. But at the point in time where the Gemara wanted to say, as a teretz, that Reb Shimon Gamliel holds you can't sell everything, you only can sell what he doesn't need, how would he have explained the brisa? Because let's go back and look at the Mishnah. What does the Mishnah say? The Mishnah says, and if you want to learn that, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel explains that as meaning that you sell the car, the fancy one, and you give him a simple one, right? By a machresha is a plow. How do you sell a fancy one and get a less fancy one? A plow is a plow. So, Frank the Gemara, according to the Havamin, where we thought we could resolve Rabbi Shimon Gamliel by saying that you downgrade him, Frank the Gemara, Bishlam Makarva Kesses, Chazil the Beni Beni. You can buy, instead of getting downfilled, you can get the polyester. Sorry? I guess not. It's not like nowadays. Elamachresha, Lamai Chazil. What does that mean? A lower level plow. Zok the Gemara, Amar Rabba Bar Rabba Machresha the Kaspa. He doesn't need a machresha of silver. So the question is, who plows with a silver plow? That's why Tosfos tells us on the Mishnah that the machresha doesn't mean a plow, because anyway we're talking about personal items. We're talking about a brush, a scrub brush that he uses in the mikveh. Let's have a look at Rashi. So let's have a look at Tosfos on Amar Aleph. The Oid Nirla Rabbeinu Tam, it's like the third from the bottom on this third to the bottom Tosfos. So third to the bottom Tosfos. There's a machresha, it's the third line from the bottom of the Tosfos. The Oid Nirla Rabbeinu Tam, the machresha dacha lav hainu machresha shechoshim b'is hakarka. The nearer it's masha from the sugya lo mechay b'ashav v'sha'avot el b'kliha asay l'gufa adam v'lam asay. It's mashma that a plow, which is not used for the personal enjoyment of a person, that's something anyway you wouldn't give back, and therefore the machresh the muki b'gemara b'machresh the kaspa. At the end of the Gemara, which we are holding right now, the Gemara says it's talking about a silver plow. Vein derech lacher is karka b'machresh shel kesef. Who's using a silver plow to plow land? Elonir ben Tam down the megardosa shemegarden boy b'nei adam the base of merchet. Some type of scraper that a person scrapes the grime off his body in the base of merchet. Kedama per chavis of the leime magridosoi the kaspa. His mother made him this scraper, the scrubber of silver. The kaspa pirish rach the hainu magridosa. It was some type of bathing utensil. So let's see the Gemara weiter. Maskif law Rab Chaga. V'lei malei, I don't understand. V'lei malei, let the Malva tell the loiva, lav olai karamas. I don't understand. Why do I have to support you? I lent you money. Pay me back. And now I'm responsible to support you, and I have to give you a bed. Well, why is that my problem? V'lei malei, lav olai karamas. Where did you get this whole concept from that I have to support this loiva? Amalei Abaye. So Abaye told him, Ivra. The truth is, Olei Karami. The Malva is responsible for the well-being of the loiva. You know why? Shenemer, the pasuk says, Ulacha Yitia Tzedakah, and Rashi says, Shehela Tzedakah. Shakazu Hital Alav, Lasas Tzedakah, Lahalach Lefonim. The Torah is Mechayiv, the Malva, to actually do Tzedakah on behalf. So let's have a look at the pasuk. Hashiv Tashiv Loi Esa Avoid, Kivoy Hashemesh, Vishacha V'Salmosoi, Uveirachcha, Ulachatiya Tzedakah Lefnei Hashem Alekecha. You're mechuyev to do that tzedakah, and therefore, in fact, it's not stam. We're being mechayev him to leave the loiva his bare necessities. It's in the Torah that he's mechuyev to do that. Okay, we'll stop here, Bez Hashem, and we'll be mamshech tomorrow. We're closing in very soon on the end of the Masechta. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 6 blot left, and not really 6 because the last blot is only an Amud, but that means 6 days left. So today is Thursday. That means we're going to be finished on Tuesday. Tuesday we're going to be finishing of Metzia and starting Bava Basra. Really, we're smoking out over here. We're moving along. Everyone should have a bench today.